Hello and welcome to This Week in Atheism, brought to you by the Center for Atheism. This Week in Atheism is a panel discussion concerning articles and current events that affect the atheist community. And before we get into our discussion, I want to introduce my co-panelists. On my left is Genevieve Joy, and on my right is Omar Huamanchumo. Thank you both for joining us this week. We're going to do, this is probably going to come as no surprise to anyone. I think the Canadians tend to be a tad more sophisticated than culturally than we are. And this is from an article from the Angus Reid Global Monitor. And it says that Canadians choose evolution over creationism. And roughly 3 in 5 adults in Canada side with the theory of evolution, according to a poll by Angus Reid Strategies. 58% of respondents believe human beings evolved from less advanced life forms over millions of years. Conversely, 22% of respondents think God created human beings in their present form within the last 10,000 years, while 20% are not sure. In November 2000, Canadian Alliance leader Stockwell Day, who currently serves as Canada's public safety minister, said there is, quote, scientific proof, unquote, that early man coexisted with dinosaurs. Day rejected criticism of his views, declaring, if you're looking for dinosaur politics, you need to look at the Liberals.
Ouch.
That's funny.
Yeah, that is funny, kind of. But
they don't believe in dinosaurs? Is that what that means?
no, I think the attempt was that it was kind of, I don't know what the attempt was. I
guess it's an attempt at making evolution look silly.
Look silly and old and like dinosaurs. Last year, Ontario Progressive Conservative leader John Tory discussed his views on how creationism and evolution could be taught in the Canadian province school, saying the Christian-based school would have to teach the Ontario curriculum, which of course has a different explanation. It's still called the theory of evolution, but they teach evolution in the Ontario curriculum. But they could also mention to children the fact that there are other theories out there that are part of some Christian beliefs. And here's the polling data. When asked which of these statements come closest to your point of view regarding the origin and development of human beings on Earth, 59% said that human beings evolved from less advanced life forms over millions of years. 22%, I'm sorry, and that's 59% up from 58%. So in July of 58% down from 59% in June of 2007. And 22% from June of 2007 to July of 2008, 22% stayed the same. And those who were not sure actually increased 1 point from 19% in June of 2007 to 20% in July of 2008. But the good news is that I think still the majority of people in Canada accept the theory of evolution as the best explanation for the development of life. Now, I think in the United States.
Oh boy!
I think.
Don't say it.
No,
don't do it.
No, in the United States.
Don't you dare.
That's not that bad, is it?
I think it's 51% actually in the United States.
I thought it was higher.
51% accept evolution. I think
it's higher. Well, first of all, I don't believe this BS polls. I really don't.
I do. Because you don't know the reason why, though. Because think about it.
It just blows my mind.
Well,
there's no freaking way
that
people believe in the talking snake. And Eve came from the rib.
Yeah, they do. The whole South.
And the Virgin.
The whole South and the whole Midwest.
But I think in the United States it's 51% who accept evolution.
And also the way they phrase the question.
Yes, that's true. That is very true with the polls. You have to be very careful about how the questions are asked. In the United States, there's a significant percentage of people who literally believe in the devil. There are people. There's a significant percentage, although albeit a smaller percentage of people who really believe that there are angels and that it's possible to have a guardian angel.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I got into an argument actually with somebody, and I don't even know why I let the conversation go that way. But he's like, what did he say? I said, that I think it's depressing that people still believe in, that people are still Christian and blah, blah, blah. And my husband goes, what? You don't believe in Genesis? And I said, no.
The Phil Collins band, right? They're great.
Starts telling me this whole thing. And
I wish I had said that.
I said, I don't.
We can edit it.
I don't know what you mean. Like, you really believe in the devil and the horns? And he's like, no! The devil doesn't come at you with those horns. The devil's smoother than that. The snake says, don't talk. What did the snake say? What did the snake? And I'm like, oh my God, this person is so excited about this story.
Well,
he really believes it.
Did you win the argument at least?
No, I gave up.
Yeah.
I had no choice. I had to walk away. I was like.
But you know, in the story of Genesis, actually, the snake told the truth and God lied. God said if they ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge, they would like surely die.
Oh, and they didn't die.
And they didn't die. And the snake told Eve, "You will not die if you eat."
No, they do die because they're mortal.
But they die. But
they don't die on the spot.
They don't.
No, but
they live 900 years.
But they live to be 900 years old.
Maybe they would have been immortal had they not.
I know, but we'll never know.
Maybe mortality.
Right.
Doesn't that make sense? You'll die.
Right.
Whereas beforehand they wouldn't have ever.
Right, and I guess
so aging and death is a result.
Maybe
of
it's my misunderstanding
God?
then, because my interpretation was, or the place where I got it from, was that basically you take a bite out of that apple, you'll kill.
But maybe it had initially been set up that they were immortal, and then
I think
death is a function of having gone against God.
Course,
are you guys talking about Genesis? Wasn't in Genesis like God created light on the 6th day and the sun on the 7th?
Of course, but afterward, the story of Adam and Eve and the fall from...
Okay, the fall from the Garden of Eden.
Right.
Yeah.
On the other hand, God's supposed to have known in advance that they would do it anyway.
Right, because
so
he's
what
all
was
knowing.
The point in the test?
So what was the point?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what was the point of even putting the tree there in the first place?
I know, man.
So
I never. Yeah, I mean, this is a really deep debate that we could have.
Sorry, yeah, I mean, they were basically set up.
And who planted the seed for the
but in any case,
49% of Americans are still buying it. So
49%. Yeah. So as opposed to
damn you Americans.
As opposed to
Canadians.
Yeah. As opposed to 22% of Canadians, but 20% are not sure. That's still too many. But at least 58% of 58%.
They have 9 months of winter in Canada, so probably that ought to tell them something. There is no freaking God. Otherwise, we would have, why are we being punished?
Why?
10 below zero in the middle of October. I mean, come on. Probably does a good.
Right, but on the other hand, they don't have tsunamis in Canada either, so they have snowstorms.
I loved America so much. Why did they put the oil under Muslim countries?
Yeah, that's like
depends on which God you adhere to.
That was I think the Israelis use that same joke too, the chosen people or something like that. If we're so chosen, why just give oil to the Arabs or whatever it was? So,
or the land.
In any case, we have.
That's how we justify killing them.
Well, whatever. We in the United States, we have, I guess, barely 51% of people who accept evolution as the best explanation for the origin of life. And if it weren't for decisions such as the Kitzmiller versus Dover decision in 2005, they'd be teaching creationism, because after all, intelligent design is really creationism in a lab coat, as they say. And we would have even more people, I suppose, believing.
But this blows my mind. I mean, 2,000 years of advance, of cultural advance, social advance, technological advance, all the evidence. All the findings, all the research.
You had the Age of Enlightenment, but science as we understand it in the modern era has only been around for 150, in the last 150 years, and that the human psyche, that could be considered culture shock,
People aren't ready to let go.
People aren't ready to let go of their myths.
Because it's warm and fuzzy, right?
But it's absolutely because it's warm and fuzzy. That's absolutely because
and it's because when you go, I think that you go through life expecting something and believing something, and then to have that shattered,
it's hard to let go of it.
It's very hard to let go of it.
Well, and don't you think that it's...
That's why people stay in bad relationships.
It's like we said in the last show, that it's also misinformation that people are getting. people are indoctrinated into believing that they need religion and they need these myths.
To begin with.
To begin with.
And they needed to be a good person.
To be a good person,
morality is
that's
synonymous with being religious.
That's another myth that we have to knock down.
It's a terrible myth, but it's true.
Nip it at the bud.
I mean, morality is synonymous with religion. You talk about good Christians, good Christian family,
right?
You know, these like
and
loving.
In fact, morality is the result of evolution. It's
otherwise, otherwise we'd be stoning, slaving, pillaging, raping people as described in the Bible 2,000 years ago. Right?
No, it's developed through reason, social contracting. I mean, that's what where morality has come from.
Through social experience.
The gap between the rich and the poor right now, where we are right now, have this recession, and people like, you know, like Paris Hilton is like the equivalent of the one Marie Antoinette back then. And hundreds of years ago, we started chopping heads when we got to this point. Now that's not going to happen. Morality's changed and it's developed because reason has changed and people have changed.
No,
that is not because of religion.
That's not because we've gotten more religious.
Because the lines in the Bible have not changed for the last 2,000 years.
And we've gotten less religious as opposed to more religious.
Right.
Yeah, that's an interesting
How can we
thing.
get that and these people don't?
You touched on something very interesting because statistically, this United States is becoming actually more secular, which is so weird.
I would like to believe that. Well, even though we get,
but on certain levels, it is
bombarded with this polls every
very
freaking
materialistic.
week.
It's very materialistic.
Well, it's both. It's both. You know, and that is what drives so many people crazy. It's like the most religious Western country, but then you know we have the most criminals or the highest rates of drug dealers or drug users.
The highest rates of murder and divorce or
pornography
or in the Bible.
You know, yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So
these people are frustrated because they're waiting for God to do things instead of just taking action. Too.
You know, I'm wondering if we're getting more secular, and yet people need to have those symbols of religiosity. You know, people like we've said before. People get warm and fuzzy over having prayers in school and believing in Adam and Eve, but they. You know, I guess it was Daniel Dennett who said, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, that it's not so much that people believe that they believe. People are in love with the idea that they believe, but when push comes to shove, they're not going to. Most people, there are a few that would, but most people are not going to just sit there and pray if they need a doctor.
That's why I like Christian Scientists. They actually live their pledge.
Right.
They're the only ones.
Well, and they die by it, right?
Well, yeah, they're.
Yeah, pretty much.
There are. I've heard stories about.
Yes, of course, a lot of them end up going back on it when they, you know. But the idea is that you live the pledge. They've had to lighten up a little bit. But really, I mean, how many times I'm gonna quote a comedian, Jamie Kilstein, who says something along the lines of. Somebody will say, "Oh, I'm religious. I'm a passionate Christian," and then you ask them to do something crazy for their faith, and suddenly it's, I'm more spiritual than religious.
Like, I'm totally spiritual. Like, I got my crystals and eat my wheatgrass and hug trees.
Well, there's a difference, though, religion and spirituality. I mean, you can be an atheist and have these spiritual, you know, experiences or whatever you want to call it.
You can believe
but that could be divorced from religion, from believing in a dictator that has a billion video cameras watching.
But see, I had said to somebody, he said, "You're an atheist?" And he said, "Well, I can't get around believing in God." And I said, "Well, define God." Because, you know,
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Said,
Zeus?
Define your terms. If you get Zeus
or
if you define God as energy or creative potential, like, sure, that exists.
Right.
And some people,
Albert Einstein thought, right?
Right. So you could say, I believe in God because I believe that God is, the magnetic pole that exists between
basically, right.
people and
God. Ground of all being.
Right. God equals compassion and potential and intelligence. Fine. But you have to find your terms. And people say that they believe in God, but they don't mean the
definition of God. Pizza that's ever.
And only when you deconstruct it that way, then you start breaking down.
And then they say, "Well, I guess basics. Yeah, that's not really what God means. I believe in it." And they say, "How could you? You don't believe in anything?" And I'm like, "I'm not a nihilist." Sure. That definition of God, fine, but that's not what people mean when they say God.
You know what I love it is when they tell you that God is just all powerful and completely unknowable, and then they'll proceed to describe what God is.
Right.
You know,
right.
You know, I mean, that's
hey, if I want to hear from God, I hear from Him.
Then basically, yeah. I mean, basically, if you're telling me that God is something that can't possibly be described or known, then what information?
And then they start to describe a little more, and then you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't even make any sense. Well, it doesn't matter because God,
right, is in mysterious ways. It's not for our mind.
Then the question is, what information do you have to give me then?
Right,
none.
exactly.
You can't give me any information.
Right, right.
You can't. Yeah, I can't even know it. But this is going back to the evolution thing. Is that this is where we're at? I'm embarrassed that it's only 51%.
Again, I don't think those polls are. I mean,
58% in Canada.
That's true. We need to know who they're asking and how they're asking.
How they're phrasing the question.
Well, you know, like, did you see a broken taillight? Did you see the broken taillight? You know, they do that to skew polls.
Yeah.
Well, again, just for our readers, our viewers' edification, the questions were: human beings evolved from less advanced life forms over millions of years, and the respondents were 58% as of July of 2008. That was one question. God created human beings in their present form within the last 10,000 years, and 22% in Canada said yes, and the remaining 20% were not sure. I guess, and here's the methodology. Online interviews with 1,007 Canadian adults conducted...
1,007?
Yes, conducted July 29th and July 30th of 2008. And the margin of error is 3.1%. But even with that margin of error, it still comes out to more than the United States.
It is so ironic because it's an online interview, you know, granted to you by science and technology, and here you are participating in a question regarding evolution.
Right.
Using the very instrument that wouldn't be possible if you just based all your crap on the Bible.
I'm just thinking this, that. You know, what did he say in the article about dinosaurs? He says there's scientific proof that man coexisted with dinosaurs.
Scientific proof?
Right, but the thing is, if there was scientific proof, you'd have seen cave drawings of dinosaurs being killed.
Right.
They'd find.
Oh, that's kind of funny. If you saw cave drawings of like. How would they do it? Lightning piercing through the dinosaur,
or their spears, or whatever. You know, you'd have what you would have is, for instance, in Siberia, for instance, they found houses made out of mastodon tusks. You know, foundations for houses and skins and things like that, which they haven't found with dinosaurs.
So wasn't part of the building code.
It wasn't part of the building code, yeah. but now apparently. He says that there's scientific proof, and actually there is none.
That's what they always say. Yeah, I can prove to you that there is a God.
And then they go,
yeah. I mean, come on, we're talking about evidence here.
I mean, it's like the Loch Ness monster. There's again, you know,
or Bigfoot.
Or Bigfoot, you know.
They found Bigfoot.
It turned out to be a rubbery costume.
No way, really?
I don't know. You think?
Yeah, it wasn't.
What does Bigfoot mean?
They finally admitted it.
What is Bigfoot?
It's
Sasquatch.
Yeah, the abominable snowman.
The abominable. Yeah.
Sasquatch.
Yeah.
It's just like this big ape guy.
Yeah. Like Harry and the Hendersons.
Like Harry and the Hendersons.
Right.
Love your frame of reference. Perfect.
Yeah. Perfect. All of my news that I get comes from taxi cabs. That's it. That's where I get my current events from.
And from watching Harry and the Hendersons, apparently.
Of course. Well, yeah, but I mean, that's
goes without saying. Yeah. But you know, it figured if there had been a Loch Ness monster, they probably would have killed and eaten the thing like 20,000 years ago.
Catch the Loch Ness monster. That's why he's a monster.
Yeah.
Or dragons or unicorns. Or Pegasus.
So here we stand is that we are our neighbor to the north. We're one nation under Canada,
Basically, pretty much.
And our neighbors to the north have at least 6% more of a clue than we do about at least 6%. Well, what's the margin of error?
3.1%.
Yeah, so yeah, 5% more of a clue than we have.
Well, all they watch is American TV, so that probably.
Oh, that's not true. We have friends in Canada and Canadian atheists as well, and I'm sure they have better things to do than just simply watch American TV.
Mm.
No, I don't think so. Ice fishing and American TV.
Hockey, probably.
Well, that can't be true. I refuse to believe that.
I've never even been to Canada. I should shut up.
I've been through it, and
I've been through it.
I've been through it. I've been through.
I've been to the airport. Yeah. I crossed the bridge and came right back. That's my extent of.
So, has anyone got anything else to say about this rather sobering fact of Canadians being more sophisticated about evolution than we are in the United States?
I think that's our point.
I think that is our point. What time? How much time do we have?
First their dollar is worth more than ours, and now they apparently are more sophisticated than us.
I'm going to switch gear just a little bit here. This is from the National Post from England, and it's called "Believing in the Power of Humor." And Dr. Robert Buckman worries about his fellow atheists. He's actually, this is from Toronto. This story is about a Toronto doctor, and he has some advice for us, the rest of us atheists. He's an atheist himself. He said, "The godless can be way too dogmatic and far too humorless." Well, I don't think
that's not true.
That's not true.
I don't think this show is. I think the show flies in the face of that.
Doesn't humor come from dark places the best?
I know mine does. I don't know about you, but in any case, well, that went over really well. In any case, he says, "Stop feeling because you are sure you're right. That gives you the power to shout and dominate and be a pill."
But it does.
Is he talking about the evangelicals?
Yeah, I'm saying, I'm just humble up and accept that people may not agree with you. Duh.
Again, who's he talking about?
Wrong.
Yeah.
He said,
"The truth shall set you free, my brother."
He talks about Dawkins being sarcastic in his book, The God Delusion.
Oh, I love it. I think he's hilarious.
Yes.
Christopher Hitchens too.
But,
all of them.
Well, Christopher Hitchens is a given. You kind of expect him to do that. He says, Dr. Buckman says we have to be incredibly careful about how we say what we say. To me and all atheists, there's no doubt that there isn't a physical spirit in the sky that organizes things, but we have to be tolerant and understanding of the way that most other people hold on to their own beliefs.
I don't think we do. I think that part of being an atheist is breaking down those theories and calling people out on their stupidity.
That's right.
I mean, it's
just
part of
rather.
Why have the views if you're not going to express them? And maybe sometimes people come across a little bit caustic, but it's frustrating to have to deal with people who are irrational.
And for the most part, it's atheists that get they try to shout down and
and they call atheists caustic, whatever people, but really,
don't judge other atheists by me. I just happen to have an attitude, but I'm one of the few.
No, but I guess he has a point.
He doesn't have a valid point. The point is that he's basically saying you're mean. You're being mean.
Well,
I want to believe in Santa Claus. You shouldn't give me a hard time. That's mean. That's what he's saying.
He's telling us to lighten up, and I think in some cases he's right, but I think in most cases he's not.
Yeah, you don't want to come off to abrasive because then you miss that.
Here's how he deals with belief.
To do and say.
Here's how he deals with belief. For an atheist, Dr. Buckman has an unusual tolerance and warmth for religion. It comes from having been an oncologist for the past 3 decades and having dealt with thousands of cancer patients who have faced their own mortality and have clung to their religious beliefs to find solace. He said, I support it totally. Belief is not a matter that you can persuade someone to change anyway, because it has nothing to do with the facts. I would absolutely support anybody who gets support from their own particular belief. If someone said, I believe in angels and it helps me sleep at night, I would say that's great.
I wish I was one of those people.
Yeah, but it's not true. Aren't we all about seeking truth? And
not everybody, I guess. Some people would
here's something that he had. This is Here's something that he had to take care of. He recalled one patient who came from a strict fundamentalist Christian background.
What is he doing in the hospital? Why isn't he praying to God to remove the tumor?
Well, because he's an
not
atheist.
A Christian, but the people who he's
he has to deal with believers. See, he has to deal with.
No, believers. The believer. Why is the believer in the freaking hospital hooked up to this complicated machines? That
I guess it doesn't really matter why they're there anyway.
They're there, and that's part of the.
God failed them. Okay.
That's part of the superstition. Well, you know that, and I know that, but.
It doesn't matter.
He recalled that one patient who came from a strict fundamentalist Christian background believed that God would subject her to horrendous torture once she passed through this life. Her fear was so great, she kept having severe episodes of shortness of breath. So Dr. Buckman did not try to convince her there was no God. He did the opposite. He enlisted the hospital chaplain to help convince the woman that God is kind. The chaplain told her that her view of God was way out of line. And as a result of her doing that, she got over her attacks of shortness of breath. But you know,
I don't know if I would have done that.
Yeah,
I would have
to somebody who's dying.
Yeah,
religion is the coping mechanism,
yeah,
and on a level,
true.
I guess it's like let them have it. I just think, somebody's dying in a hospital, and this is how they're dealing with it. Leave them alone.
Yeah, of course.